Today I have an episode of one of my favorite YouTube series, New and Must-Have Crafty Supplies. Today is a special episode because I'll be featuring new tools and basic supplies. Today is also extra special because I have a big giveaway for US residents. At the end of this video, I will tell you exactly how to enter to win and how to avoid spammers. So please watch the end of the video if you want to enter to win. In this episode, I'll be featuring new tools and basic supplies from Spellbinders and Tim Holtz. And I have received none of these for free. I bought all the tools and basic supplies that I'm using with my own money. The stamps and dies that I'm featuring today were sent to me. So let's get started and take a look at what made my list this month of new and must-have crafty supply basics. First up, I was really excited to see that Spellbinders has several new tools this month, including the 1-2 corner punch and notch. So you can use this to easily punch out rounded corners. I love the look of rounded corners on cards. I haven't used it in a long time because I didn't have a corner punch that was handy. Now this one is nice and small, sits flat on your desk surface. It would fit nicely in a drawer or on a little shelf near your desk. And it punches really easily. You just slide the entire corner into the area that is open for the corner punch. And for the notch punch, there are guidelines. So you just slide it in there and then press down on the handle and you get either that corner or that notch depending on which side you use. They also have new glitter cardstock. This is the spring tone and you can see that I'm rubbing my hand against it to make sure that that glitter does not shed, and it doesn't. It comes in some really beautiful colors, and I found that it was thin enough to die cut really easily. I love these spring tones, especially you also get a white, which will go with anything, but the pink is just my absolute favorite. Again, they're thin enough that you can use them for lots of different things, including die cutting. They're easy to trim in your paper trimmer as well. This is a little balloon die from Pretty Pink Posh's latest release. This is Party Balloons, and you can see how clean that cut is on the edge of the glitter cardstock, which is just great for Cardmakers. This is the Mighty Mister spray bottle, also from Spellbinders. I'll share several different ways to use this Mighty Mister spray bottle in a minute. This is the Spellbinders water brush set. I really like this water brush set for a few reasons. I like that it includes 3 brushes. One is fine, one is medium, and one is bold. Now this fine tip and then this medium tip are great for coloring in images, and this bold tip is great for creating some background areas or painting in large areas. I also like how easy it is to fill. You just unscrew it and put the water in instead of squeezing the bottle and trying to get drips of water in there. This is a distressed tiny blending tool. This is for Ranger for Tim Holtz, and you can see the tiny little foams go along with this tiny little blender. This is great because sometimes the dome foam blender is just too large for certain areas that you need to do some blending or shading, and you can see the size difference between the original blending tool with the domed foam on it and the new tiny blending tool with its tiny little foam on it. Now, let me share how I'm using these supplies in my card making. First up, the Mini Mister is great for a mist or spray of water on cardstock if you want to use the cardstock inside a 3D embossing folder. If you're having trouble with cracking or not getting a real deep impression, this mister gives the perfect mist of water to coat the cardstock with water, and that allows it to have a little more flexibility in the paper, which allows a deeper impression and no cracking. So you can see this new embossing folder from Simon Hurley for Spellbinders, woven, and all of the details you can get by using that mister. You can also use the mister with any water reactive inks. Here I have Distress Oxide in Spun Sugar, Salvaged Patina, and Cracked Pistachio. Looks like they all need to be refilled. A lot of my Distress Oxides are probably getting a little dry, but once you mist them, you can see that they react to the water. I like how it's a mist across the entire surface. Here we're using the tiny blenders on top of a stencil that was available for free with a certain number of purchase at Pretty Pink Posh's birthday celebration on their website. So I have the tiny blender and you can see that I'm able to color in just the little dots that I want to. I'm creating a rainbow of these little dots in circles to create a nice multicolor background. It was very easy to do with those tiny little blenders and domed foams, and you get that great overlap of colors. Here I have some Caron Brush Pro markers, and I'm placing them down on some Strathmore Bristol smooth cardstock, and then I'm using the Spellbinders water brush, the bold one, to sweep back and forth with a little bit of water from the brush, and I'm cleaning it off in between so that I get to keep all of those colors. They don't completely blend together, but there will be blending where they overlap. It's absolutely gorgeous as is, but I thought it'd be fun to add some words on top of that. So again, I'll reach for those tiny little blenders and use them on top of the Pretty Pink Posh birthday words stencil. So this stencil has birthday, happy birthday, and party, and make a wish across it. And I'm using some Distress Oxide colors that match with the watercolor that I have underneath. So it'll just be a tone-on-tone effect for each of those colors. And again, I'm easily able to just cover the words that I want with those tiny blenders from Tim Holtz for Ranger. Here you go. You can see the darker pink on top of that pink watercolor and on down the card. It's great to see new supplies and to see how they work to create backgrounds or parts of cards, but it's just as important to see how they come together to make a finished card. So let's do that now. Let's start with the stenciled background that we use the tiny blenders for. I'm using the Birthday Train stamp set from Pretty Pink Posh, and I've colored it all in with colors that match the stenciled background, and then I'll pop up the first car of the train is actually from the original Valentine Train stamp set, and the rest of them are from the Birthday Train stamp set. So you can really make a long train if you want to include all of the cars of the train. I also have the party balloons that I cut out of glitter cardstock, and there's a sentiment in the Birthday Train stamp set that says hooray, and you can die cut it out. So I put that on top. I'm using the My Sweet Petunia Precision Press, another one of my favorite tools all time, to adhere down the little string and everything else. And I've heard that the Precision Press is back in stock at My Sweet Petunia, so be sure to go grab it if you've been looking for one. Next up, we'll use the background that I watercolored and then stenciled over that. I've cut it down to 4 by 5 1/4. I'll put a little tape runner on the back and then mat it down on an A2 piece of white cardstock. This time I'm using the birthday sentiment strips and the sentiment strip dies to cut out the sentiment. And for the images, I'm using the birthday cupcakes. They are so cute. Again, I've colored them in with bright colors that match my background, and I'll pop them up on some foam squares from Spellbinders. I love how this cute card came together so quickly and easily by following the colors in the background. Next up, I wanted to do some watercoloring, so I have the Spring Bunnies press plate. This is a Simon Hurley for Spellbinder set. It has several bunnies, a little Easter basket, and this is the Spring Magnolias set. Again, Simon Hurley for Spellbinders. Really great spring sets, and I love the way the Better Press came out on some Strathmore Bristol Smooth. I'm also using the Spring Magnolias set with the Glimmer Machine. Now, I heard Yana Smakula, who's one of the most amazing designers. She works with Spellbinders and creates beautiful cards, in my opinion, the most beautiful cards. She said that she can use the Better Press plates with the Glimmer Machine and foil. So I thought I would give it a try. And she's absolutely right. It creates the most detailed images. I can't even get over how beautiful this is. By the way, I'm sure you're following her, but if you're not, I'm going to link to her YouTube channel right up in the right-hand corner here. Absolutely amazing how well the Better Press plates work with the glimmer. Now I'll use my Caron markers. These are the Brush Marker Pros, and for the bunnies, I'll just add some color to the lines of the image. So those lines are supposed to be the darkest spots of the image, so I'm just adding color right over those lines. Makes it really, really easy. You don't have to really think at all. You're just covering up those lines with that watercolor marker. Next, I'll take the watercolor brush from Spellbinders and I'll add a little bit of water. I'm using that fine brush and just spread the color from the darkest areas to the other areas that have not been colored in yet. I'll add a little hint of a pink to the nose and inside of the ears as well. Even though it's a little wet, you can use the marker on top. And I'll do this for the other two bunnies as well, using slightly different colors. I have a gray, a darker brown, a lighter brown. This way, each of the bunnies has a unique look. And then I'll work on the tulips. They are super easy, just a little green on the stems and a little color on the actual flower. And then the Easter eggs as well. You can go crazy with color there. I had mine nice and bright. I love them. Don't worry about that little spot that I overdid it on the spring basket there. We'll figure that out when we die cut it, and always we can fix it afterwards. So here's how these guys turned out with the water brush. Next, I cut down some white cardstock to a small rectangle. This is much smaller than an A2, and I'm using the Spellbinders corner rounder to round each of the corners of this rectangle. Then I'll place a little bit of tape runner behind that and adhere it down to the woven cardstock. This is nice and dry now that I've set it aside, and look at how cute that looks with the rounded corners. Next, I'll take those spring bunnies with the tulips and the Easter eggs, and I'll adhere them down using some of those foam squares to pop everything up. I'll pop up the basket at the top. There's also sentiments that can die cut out from that set, so I'll put one of those right on top of the basket, and then add some Easter eggs behind the bunnies. This would have been easier to do before I adhered them down, but I wasn't sure where they were going to fit. This is one of my new favorite white paint pens. It's not a gel pen, so if you have issues with gel pens, I definitely recommend checking out this Molotow paint pen. I'll have it linked in the supply list below. Next up, I am coloring in the spring magnolias. Now remember, these were better pressed onto Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. So using the Caron markers on top of that cardstock is really easy to do. It is, to me, the easiest watercoloring I've ever done. So again, I just add some color to the darker lines of the flower here, and then I pull out the color with the water brush, and I'm using that fine water brush again to get into these small areas. I'll start with a lighter color, kind of a peachy light pink, and then I'll add the darker color to the centers and to those lines on the flowers, and then I'll blend it out with the water brush. Again, so easy to do. This does not take really any skill at all. So if you've ever struggled with watercolor, this is a combination that I highly recommend. And I love that the Better Press ink is perfect with watercolors. Does not smear, does not move, doesn't do anything. Now I'll color in the leaves. That was really easy. And I took that background that I created with the Distress Oxide inks and the Mister, and I'll just cut that down a little bit again so it's smaller than an A2, and then round those corners as well. And then a little tape runner on the back, and you can see that I've passed an A2 piece of white cardstock with the woven embossing folder through the Spellbinders Platinum machine. Once I have that adhered down, I'm adhering all those spring magnolias popped up in the corners. They look so great, and you also get some sentiments with that set as well. And I love how clear the Better Press comes out when you use it, especially with the black ink. It really comes out crisp, and then you can use watercolor and other things on top. Another way to use the Mighty Mister is to get your watercolor pans ready. So one mist across your pans, and they have a little touch of water on each pan, which then you can use the water brush to add a little bit more if you need to and pick up that color. So these pans are from the Stamp Market. And again, I will link all the supplies down in the supply list, which will be inside the YouTube description box. These are definitely a little trickier to work with for me anyway. I think I had to think about how much water I was using and where I was placing the color a little bit more. With the markers, I can just place that darker color on the lines. For this card, I'm using the foiled magnolias. So it was the better pressed plates with the glimmer machine and some foil, and the foil resists the watercolor. So that makes it a little bit easier, but you can see that it's harder for me to get sort of a gradient of color and different colors on there. I kind of got there on some of them, but some of them I think were a little harder for me to get the color combination just right so you could see different aspects of the color on the flower. But I still like the way they turned out. And again, this white paint pen has got such a fine tip that you can make those little dots that you would make with a white gel pen. Here again, I'm using that Mighty Mister to just mist the cardstock. I do one on the front, one on the back, and then I run it through my platinum with the 3D embossing folder woven, and I'll trim that down to 4 by 5 1/4 to mat it on some pink cardstock. I have that glimmered sentiment in the center, and now I have the glimmer watercolored flowers that I can add around the card. I really love how you get these 3 different flower clusters, well, 2 flower clusters and 1 single flower. I'm also really loving the waffle flower candy dots right now. I love the slightly less opaque look of a candy dot as opposed to the enamel dots, and they're perfect accents for this card. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you are entering the giveaway, please fill out the Google form. It's in the YouTube description box below this video. All of the information will be there, but just a word of warning, I won't be using the comments to contact the winner. I will be emailing them directly from my email address. So please don't respond to the spammers who sometimes use my name and my photo. I have 3 large priority mailboxes that I am filling with everything from ink pads to stamps to dies to foil plates and more. Please know that I would love to open this up to everyone internationally. I just can't afford to do so right now. I have huge, heavy boxes to give away. So keep subscribing and sharing my videos and asking other people to subscribe, and we'll get our numbers to the point where I'll do another big gift card giveaway. I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. Favorite everything, nope. A lot going on over there.